Hey gang, Joyce with Skipping Calves Farms. Well, I think I got about as good as I'm gonna get. I did a couple of small maneuvers 3 or 4 feet back. I came in and got real close. How close to the propane tank? Well, that's how close the tire got to it. So I wanted to have the tire about there. First time I got it over here, and then the second time I got it over here. And that's going to be about as close as I think I'm going to be able to get with just me, one person, because you can't see this trailer because it's so small and it turns so fast. And it was my goal to drop it right here on this area, and that's where the end of the trailer is. So I can pile it up here, and then if I need to, just pull the trailer forward. But the springs in this Jeep were promised to have been replaced by a quote-unquote friend of mine 4 years ago. They still haven't been replaced. And you can see that what is that, 2-inch ball that's on the bottom is just a couple inches off the ground, if that. And I couldn't cut it any sharper because you can see that hook is bouncing off the side of the frame of the trailer. So God is good, gang, and I don't think I could have gotten it any closer. I did take an extra probably 10 or 15 minutes with the trailer, using the hitch and being attached to the Jeep. Why? Well, imagine that's a little bit of a funny looking video. Because I figured if I could take an extra 15 minutes there, that's going to save me a lot of time, trouble, and discomfort unloading the trailer. Now, I'm kind of holding this phone cross-handed, so I apologize if it bounces around a little bit. When I use this trailer and I use these straps, I'm able, pop mushroom compost up into my face. But when you put those on, because I do have a side and there's just a tiny gap, I can kind of do it like dental floss. And it goes up in there, and it gives me a chance to tie that down. So it's tied down tight. Now, as I was driving down the road, all of a sudden I hear this thump and this black thing. And as it turns out, it looks like I lost that strip off the top of the Jeep. I wasn't driving real fast, so I guess it was just its time to go. Looks like I'm going to have to do some body work or maybe get somebody to help me with some stuff, because it just sits outside every day and it's kind of rough on him. So I will tell you something else. One thing that I usually try and get every year around Black Friday, and that's these little, well, these are green, but these little 1 or 3/4 inch, 14-foot tie-down straps. Now, who knows what's going to happen in the future as far as prices, but I've been able to buy these things for $10 for years now. But you have to pay attention. You know, when everybody spends every extra penny they've got for stupid stuff for Christmas that's just going to get thrown away or busted, you don't have money when you need it to buy things like this. Believe me, I live on a very tight budget. And so, even as tight as my budget is, it's always my goal to live a little bit below my means, if at all possible. I always try to have what I call a sky is falling fund, That way, if I have to have tires for my car, or, you know, I've got a power bill that triples for 1 month, or whatever. If you are living on 100% of your income, I'll just tell you this, you're a fool. And if you're in debt and still living 100% of your income, you're even a bigger fool, because you're living on more than 100% of your income. And there's no way anybody who continues to manage their money that way are ever going to be able to establish a successful farm business. Not unless they would change the way they think. Because if you spend everything you've got, if it burns a hole in your pocket, so you're going to go out and get something shiny, well, guess what? Now, but Joyce, you just said to go out and get something shiny, right? These little straps. Well, yeah. But if you buy $20 or $30 worth of straps in a year, all that means is you just don't go out to dinner one time. And now you've got these tools that you can use for the next 20 years. And they're going to save your bacon. Because they're not going to get any better quality, and they're not going to get any cheaper. Well, they might get cheaper, but they certainly aren't going to get any better quality as long as they're coming from China. That's not in their best interest. They don't do things for our best interest. They do things for theirs, just like we do. So, I'm trying to do this with one hand, and I don't think I can get this knot undone. I don't think I can get this knot done. Yeah, maybe I can get it undone with one hand. Trying to get these straps off. So, I know the video is a little crazy, but as you can kind of see here, the strap is dirty on the outside because I kind of, like I said, you know, it's kind of like dental floss. Yeah, pull it back and forth. Oh, I'm definitely going to have 2 hands to get that. I'm going to have to loosen the whole thing and work from the other end. But, let's see if we can pop this ratchet from here. Come on. I'll tell you what, I do envy you guys your hand strength. Ah, there we go. Come on. There, now it popped. So I'm just going to take the top off. This is the mushroom compost that I got. Why did I get it today? Well, we're supposed to get some more rain, and I was hoping to get it with it when it wasn't too wet. This is pretty wet stuff. But I still was able to carry the weight with a full scoop with a prayer and a blessing. But why did I go ahead and get it? For a number of reasons. Number one, I had to take the Jeep into town anyway. So I probably saved myself $5 or $10. Well, let's call it $5. Well, it could have been $10 round trip in fuel. Set the phone down for a second. I saved myself at least $5, maybe $10 in fuel, just not having to go into town a second time. I had to go into town anyway. I had to get I had to get 150 pounds. Well, I didn't have to get 150, but I needed to get some chicken feed. I needed to get some sheep feed. I needed to get some cat food. And I had to go to the local ag co-op anyway. And I would not have been able to carry the sheep feed, the sweet feed, and the chicken feed without possibly making a second trip in my little car. So I would have had to take the Jeep, taken the Jeep anyway. And last time I was in there, it's funny how God works. There was somebody that came up and ordered some mushroom compost while I was at the counter. And so I asked him about it. I never even thought about it. And then I came home, and a couple of days later, I was talking to my neighbor James. Well, where I'm standing, you can't really see his house. His house is that brown house way back there in the background. I tell you what, I got some of the best neighbors in the world. The guys with the campers are never here because they just come up on weekends for kayaking. But James is a good neighbor, and he hadn't seen me, and I hadn't been feeling well, so he's just making sure I was okay. And he had gotten some mushroom compost, and he was telling me about it, and that's where he got it. And so I figured that was kind of a second witness, second testimony about it. So I said a little prayer about it, and before I went into town, and so I went ahead and I got me some. Now, always try to keep 2 or 3 of these U-Haul blankets. Won't tell you how I got them, but I was given them. I did not take them. They were offered to me, and I said, thank you. And put these straps over here. And so, also kind of wanted to show you what I do when I'm doing like wood chips. In addition to this compost, I kind of cover the pile the same way. Why? Because I've got this little $70, no, I'm sorry, I think I paid $80 for it 10 years ago. Gosh, has it been that long? No, not quite. Yeah, that would have been in 2014, so 12 years ago. And I had to redo the axle. That's a new axle on there, way back when. But so how do I do the blankets? Well, I took this blanket across the front from the back, so the wind is going to be blowing this way, and I tuck this in, right? And then if it's not long enough to cover the whole thing, which as you can see this isn't, I pull this back, and then I take the second blanket and fold it in half and tuck this underneath, like you would shingles on a roof, right? So if this one's on top of that one, the wind's going to come over the top and it's not going to blow this off. And this will be strapped down. This will be strapped down here. So this, even though the strap is here, it's holding this blanket tight, and that's going to hold this blanket tight. Does that make sense, gang? So, and then I just tucked it along the edge where I had the old rough cut cedar that a pastor friend of mine gave me to help me move some sawdust years ago. And I've been using them ever since, and it is raunchy looking. You can see where I've busted up the tail lights, and the wiring harness is all broken up, but it's small enough trailer that where I live you don't even have to have taillights of a trailer this size, so don't worry about it. Why spend money to fix something that's broke if you don't need it? So anyway, So that's what I did. You just lost the plywood, blew over. We've got some pretty good wind. I hope, got my hand over the microphone. I'm hoping that that's blocking the wind. But, so that's essentially what I did. I'll just roll this back. And I'm going to walk to the other side because I don't like being downwind and having dirt fly into my face. I guess that's a function of growing up being a sailor. You think of these things, you don't want to be on the wet side of the boat, right? So I tucked all of this in, and as it turns out, it was pretty much a blessing that it was a little damp. But you can see, yeah, the blanket got a little damp where it was scrunched down and folded over, but it's not soaking wet. So that's a good thing. That'll make it easier to shake off, clean. There we go. Quick flip of the wrist, and there we go. So now I'll just move this lumber back, because this lumber is supposed to go into the burn barrel, but we didn't quite fit, and I didn't want to start a second barrel in it. It's not going to get burned today. It's too windy. So here's my mushroom compost. This is the waste from the logs or whatever medium that they use to grow mushroom spawn out of. So it's going to be, see, look at that. It's going to be fungally very dominant compost. You know, there's some more over here you can see. Just where you've got mycelium from where it broke open over here, and where you've got some right there. And there's another white spot right up there. So anyway, gang, my garden is part of a pasture. That means it's, you know, look, it's surrounded by grass. So guess what? It's going to be fungally dominated? Not. So I added some sheep poop and some aged sheep poop and chicken manure. The chicken manure is going to be pretty phosphorus rich. The sheep manure is kind of a low, it's kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Slow release kind of a manure. It's not going to, it's still a hot manure, but it's not going to burn quite as bad. And my sheep are getting mineral. So 80% of the mineral that goes into the sheep comes out in the manure. What doesn't, so I don't want to waste all that manure that's inside the fold. So that's why I pick it up and bring it back here. In the meantime, they're also remineralizing the entire pasture. Do that in conjunction with some of this mushroom compost, which I'm going to work into my garden initially. I may use this to make some compost tea, although I'm not as big a huge fan on compost teas. I'm much more likely to do a compost extract. What's the difference? Well, with a compost tea, you feed it sugar or molasses and you brew it and you super duper pump up the microbes in it. And everything has to be done just right, and then you have to apply it immediately. With an extract, you're just taking what's naturally already in the compost. Why would I want to do that? Well, with the microbes, there's advantages to both. You can get a bunch of, if you're looking to increase your nematodes, for example, and your other macroorganisms arthropods and some of the other microorganisms that are animal organisms, as opposed to just something like a simple bacteria or fungi. You can do that with a tea. But as fast as, just kind of like the stock market, as fast as they go up, they can crash just as fast. And so when you have an extract, especially if you're looking to increase fungi and bacteria, and or get that ratio, especially if you do have earthworms, which will come through and chelate the minerals, now you have them in a fairly stable format. Nature's stabilizers, right? Nature's chelators. So then I don't have to worry about, well, did I brew that just right? Do I have to check it under a microscope? What's going to happen is just like what nature does. All of the spores and the cysts for those microbes are in this compost. They're not going to rejuvenate themselves until the conditions in the soil where they're living are conducive to that. So just understand there's a whole bunch of different stuff in here. Add a little bit of this stuff in here, out there, and when the conditions get right out there for these to grow, they're gonna, quote unquote, hatch and breed, right? So, I mean, that's not technically, this is how it works with a lot of microbes, but you get my point. So with that, gang, I've been talking too long, and who likes looking at dirt? I do, but a lot of people don't. So let me end this video. Let me grab a shovel and or pitchfork, get a great big glass of water, and let me get this what, that's at least 1 or 2, maybe 3 cubic yards. That's probably about 2 cubic yards of mushroom compost. So with that, gang, I will wish you blessings for the day, and whatever you do, just keep chasing the dream.